Zelenny, Cameron's hockey walk. Ah, wow.
Hello.
That one always gets to me.
Yeah, so we're here.
Do you like my
We're-
new headphones? Yeah, super
Those-
awesome.
Those are mine.
Wow.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I guess I just lied to everyone.
Oh, wow.
So we are Hikey Book Club. If you weren't able to read the middle of your screen,
Yes, I'm Zelenny.
I'm Cameron.
And today we are doing something we mentioned in the last podcast,
Yes.
which is inspired by my favorite podcast right now, which is called Giving It Up for Less, and it's by the actress Lauren Ash.
Oh.
And she has like a guest and they talk about a theme, and then she has these two segments that are always really fun, and they just tell stories surrounding this. So she has the general talk, and then she has Dumb Lies We Tell, and then she calls it Never Let Go, and they talk about grudges they have. So for the Dumb Lies one, she actually solicits from the audience, like emails, and reads some of the audience lies, and also they share their own, and it's just funny and interesting. Like, it's always very fun and interesting. And I thought it would be a fun idea to just have a Dumb Lies and Grudges podcast with you, because who doesn't? Everyone can relate, and the point is that, like,
Everybody's lied.
Yes.
Everybody holds grudges.
Yes.
Everybody's a sinner.
Yes.
Oh no.
I mean, it's just fun.
It's
It's just like, it makes you feel like less shitty, as when people share these kinds of things, it makes anyone like feel less shitty about themselves, because they can relate and stuff like that.
Is holding a grudge a sin?
I'm sure.
Oh, no.
Almost everything's a sin
Oh, true.
in the Bible. So, yeah, we're surviving the corona thing.
That
I
is
don't-
happening, isn't it?
I really don't want to talk much about it. I'm disappointed with, obviously, the U.S. response, and just like people being kind of still careless right now about it. But that's all I'm gonna say, because maybe my grudge will be
Oh wow.
all those people that are still going out.
We're self quarantined here in the Hikey studio, so
No,
we're safe. Nobody
not.
come here.
Well, you're on a set, which is dangerous, so I already feel like I'm exposed. Like, I just had to protect others.
But you're the one going to work. I'm the one that gets to stay home from work.
Well, we'll see. But yeah, so the U.S. is just a mess about it. I think for some people it's real, and for some people it's still not quite real, and I'm worried we might get to an Italy or Spain situation where we're on lockdown or whatever. We'll see. Hopefully not, but if we do end up like that, hopefully these people learn their lesson.
Hopefully. We'll see.
We'll see. Including you.
Whatever.
Okay, so let's just get into it.
Okay,
We're
sure.
gonna
Well,
do-
I mean, so where are we today?
Oh.
Where have we found ourselves?
Does anyone recognize this? Audience?
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. If it was the first thing that came to my mind for some reason, and it's kind of gloomy, kind of like our economy right now, and it is
It's from the show Big Little Lies.
that we've talked about here on the show before.
Yeah, Cameron had a brilliant idea to tie in the theme
Brilliant?
to tie in the theme of
Give me
today's
so much credit.
episodes. Yeah, so we're just gonna be telling stories about times we've told any dumb lies or any grudges we hold. We're gonna start with the dumb lies.
Do you have a
segment.
coin?
A coin?
Yeah, we got to flip to see who's gonna go first.
No, it's fine. I don't mind if you don't want to go first. I didn't think it was like a competition.
No, it's okay. I'll go first.
Okay, you go first. Let's see. What have you told any dumb lies?
No. Next. What? Was that a dumb lie?
Yes. There you go.
Okay. So yes, I've told quite a few dumb lies, and lying actually hits home for me. It's kind of personal because I had a bad habit of lying.
Well, yeah.
Did you know that?
Well, yeah, because you always say, yes, I was listening to me.
Wow.
When you weren't listening.
Oh, boy.
I have to just quiz you and be like, okay, what
Ew,
I say?
what
Lena,
is she That's not okay. Look at this.
Lena.
Oh, she's so blown out.
If you're just listening, Lena's licking her butt and extending her leg out for everyone to see. Gross, Lena.
Anyway, well, so yeah, I used to have a real bad habit of it. I don't know how it started because I wasn't a liar when I was really little. Like, I was kind of always a good kid wanting to tell the truth all the time. It's kind of hard for me to think about how it started, but definitely by middle school was where it started to hit a peak. And I had thought of an example before we came here to record, and then when we were getting set up, I thought of another example.
Okay.
But the first one I wanted to mention was, it's kind of like, it's okay, so I'll say it wasn't the first time I got in trouble for lying. Okay, I'll rewind. I'll mention in elementary school that oftentimes I would lie to my parents. I mean, I would lie to the teachers, obviously, but I'd even I'd even lie to my parents that I didn't take my Pokemon cards to school today.
Oh my god.
Basically, did you ever take your Pokemon cards to school?
No, I didn't have Pokemon. Sometimes I would bring my Pokemon figures or something.
I see.
But I wouldn't get in trouble for it.
Well, so what happened for me was like in the, like, I guess it was like 99, 1999, 2000. I was in like third or fourth grade, and like everybody was already bringing Pokemon cards to school, and then I was kind of late to the curve, but eventually I decided to start collecting Pokemon cards, and then I started bringing them to school too. And teachers in the school were cracking down on this because it was, I guess, disrupting the classes, just like how cell phones probably do now. So that was like the issue. And so they really cracked down on it, and they were banning like all Pokemon cards. And if you got caught with Pokemon cards, they would be confiscated, not returned, and they would tell your parents. And it was really annoying because like you'd only bring your rare cards to school because those were the cool ones. So like basically like your reputation hinged on what Pokemon cards you had, and if you have better ones, then you were cooler, right? You were more popular. And so I decided to start collecting them, and like my family being, more poor, it was harder to get Pokemon cards for me, and it was really significant whenever I got a pack, and it was hugely significant if I got like a rare card. I was like, oh yeah. So they became kind of like my most prized possession next to like my Legos, surprisingly or not, because before Pokemon cards, it was my Lego men, my Lego people, men and women. And so that's really what I collected before Pokemon cards, and that's what I would bring to school. But I never got in trouble for the Lego people. And then eventually that was looked down upon as like not cool, right? Because it's like you're bringing Legos to school. What are you, a boy, like a little kid? But then I started bringing the Pokemon cards, and it got to the point where I had kind of like my starter set, like my set of like a dozen really rare cards that were just like the most awesome cards. In addition to the packs, I remember we were going to like flea markets, and I can't remember the name of this particular flea market on the outskirts of Houston, but it was a really huge one. They had like commercials on TV and all. So it was a really big one, and it was called like Traders Outpost or something like that. And anyway, we would go there, and they would have vendors that were selling individual cards for like their kind of like market value. And that's where you would spend even more than like on a pack, right? You would spend like $20 or $40 for a particular card. And I remember it being like that. I'd have to like beg my mom, like, oh, can I borrow $20 for this, card that's really cool and everything? And then occasionally she would say yes, but most of the time say no. And so it was weird because I guess her rationale was that like she spent all this money for me to have these Pokemon cards, and then if I just took them to school for the teachers to potentially take them away, then she would get mad because it would be like a waste of money.
Yeah.
I guess that was her rationale.
I mean, that's good rationale.
Yeah. But for me, it's like, what's the point of taking of buying these cards if I can't take them to school to show them off?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have like neighborhood friends to mingle with, and I didn't like do sports or church or anything like that. So I had no other outlet for these Pokemon cards, so they would just like stay at home and not be shown off to anybody. So literally the whole point was to like do it. So it started getting to the point where I remember I was sneaking my Pokemon cards like into school. I had to like, it was like a whole operation, right?
Why?
Like, well,
like, why can't you just put them in your pocket? Was your mom searching?
Well, probably.
Oh.
But it was like, it's hard for me to kind of remember the circumstances, but like we were already in a tight quarters as is in our 1-bedroom apartment, and between my mother getting ready for work and my like house sitter Ron, who was living with us as well, who it was ultimately his responsibility to take me to school. Between both of them both getting ready and me getting ready all the same time in the morning, and like us having a deadline to get out the door so that we could catch the bus or whatever to get to school on time, it was really hard. Like I would have to like find a way to sneak my little Pokemon binder with my pants, maybe like into the bathroom really quickly, or wait for them to like be in the bathroom before I could like quickly sneak them into my backpack somehow. But I remember, I'm like vaguely remembering like those quick, like looking for just like 1 second where nobody's looking, and then like quickly whoosh, like putting it into my backpack. Yeah. And I think that I didn't put them in my pockets because they would get bent that way. Like it was like
protected.
Yeah, it was like in order
too big to like hide in a small way.
Yeah, exactly. Because the only way to keep them from not bending would be to put in a hard case, and then that would show in my pocket as a little kid. So I had to get them in my backpack somehow, and it would be either like I had like either a small little binder I'd put them in, or just like quickly throw them in their little sleeves. So, and I would like, it was weird because I was like planning out like what cards I was going to take today and stuff like that. So I remember doing that, and I like was doing it a few times, and then I got caught like a few times, and then I think it was one of those things where like the first couple of times a teacher caught me. Like teachers would be different, and I had like my main teacher, which we all knew to kind of not do Pokemon cards during in, because that's where the repercussions would be the hardest. But they had kind of like these little ancillary period classes where you'd have like a 30-minute session in your music class today, and then the next day 30 minutes in art or whatever. And so those teachers were more like probably contractor type teachers or something, and they seemed to just be more relaxed about the rules. And that's where we would go do a lot of the showing off for our cards and trading, which trading was what we were doing. Like we would trade the cards with each other. And anyway,
you got caught.
Well, I would get caught by them, and then I'd have like nice teachers that would give them back to me at the end and be just like, don't do this again. Well, I remember it had gotten to the certain point where one day I was trading them in the back of the class with a kid, and then the teacher saw me. He was like, he called it out in front of everybody, stopped the class, and was like, give them to me. And he was like, made a lesson out of me. He was like, you see everybody, you see this? Like, this is what happens when you bring these to school, and they're going right here, and they ain't coming back out. And he just like slipped them underneath his desk in a little drawer, and that was the last I saw them. And I remember I even like, I'm pretty sure at times like tried to sneak when the teachers weren't there in the room or something, like trying to go into the desk and sneak out and find them. And I think one time I was successful with that, but this last time, like, it hurt me because I remember like it was like my best cards and I lost them. I don't think I ever got them back.
That hurts.
It was horrible.
You should have a grudge against that guy.
I kind of do. I think his name was Mr. Hill.
Well, Mr. Hill sucks.
I know. And I loved him so much up to that point because he was our drama teacher. He was our acting teacher. And I really liked him. And so I lied to my mother about it. And she busted me because the school like eventually called her about it. And what had happened was she told Ron when Ron was coming to pick me up because she was still at work that day. And then when we got like, I remember he came to pick me up and he was just like so mad at me. He like wasn't talking to me at all. And I had no idea. Like, it's not that I didn't have an idea why because it had just happened. Yeah. Right. So I was just like, oh crap, like he probably like something's off, right? He probably knows. And then I just remember like when we got home, it being like really ominous and quiet.
I hate that feeling. That's the worst feeling in the world. Because
it's not normally like that. Yeah. And then he's just like, Cameron, just put your stuff aside over there and when I get back, you better be ready for some spanking.
Oh my God.
And so,
what the hell?
Did you know that about me?
No.
I got spanked a lot as a kid.
Oh my God. Oh, I'm sorry.
It was like, I guess it was like right on the threshold of like corporal punishment or whatever.
Right.
Like,
well, yeah, your mom seems that generation.
Oh, very much so. And Ron was absolutely that generation. Like he was a boy in school in the 50s. And so I can only imagine what he had experienced. And so even though he felt horrible doing it, he still did it. And they felt like it was the right thing to do. No, I was spanked a lot as a kid.
I'm sorry.
It's kind of traumatizing. Like it was horrible and it like hurt a lot. It was like bare ass, excuse my language, but bare ass spanking. And it was like worse if they used like a certain tool as opposed to just their hand. And I think that he used maybe like either a book or flip-flops, something like that.
God.
And I just remember it hurting so bad and me screaming so hard. And he was like, it was basically like, and I think they'd already given me this ultimatum too, where it was like, if you ever get caught with Pokemon cards, we're going to give you a spanking per card. So.
Oh no, oh my God.
And
this
so
terrifying.
Already he was planning to give me like 12 spankings or whatever. And then he was like, all right, I'm only going to do you 5 or whatever because he was trying to be nice. I think he felt bad. And then he felt so bad that like after 3, I think he was like, all right, that's enough. Like that, I'm going to stop. But it hurt so bad.
That's so sad. I'm so sorry.
And I lied to my mom about that.
About what?
About just like the Pokemon cards thing. I was like, no, I didn't bring Pokemon cards. And I think she was more mad that I lied about it than anything.
Oh, that's tough. I think I literally got spanked once and it was very light, but like it was more like the emotional trauma, you know? I was just like shocked. But I was a good kid. Like it was one of those rare instances where I acted out for some reason. I was probably being a brat or something.
That's crazy.
But like once, and it was super light because like my parents were softies. You know, they're Gen X. Or my mom at least. She was Gen X, which is like the generation before your mom or after your mom.
Yeah.
And they're softies, you know, with kids. Like they don't want to hurt them.
I know, and I felt like I had neighbors that were in that generation that I was wishing they were my parents. Like I remember people like Beth and Mike that were like our neighbors in the apartment complex. They looked down on my mom for doing that because they knew about it.
I bet.
And I felt like it wasn't fair that I was having to live like that and live with it. I mean, that might be like some of the roots of why I had like socially distanced myself from my mother after a certain point, which is kind of what leads into my second lie that I was going to talk
about. Well, but
like,
that's
or the
later.
main one.
Is it a shorter story? Because you're taking up the whole time.
I'm sorry. Do you want to tell one and then
Yes,
come back? Okay.
definitely. Okay, so I just have a few little ones, like specific ones, which is so I come from a family of dumb liars. Like I'm not much of a liar myself, kind of, but my family is like the queens of dumb lies. like like there's an episode of Familia Peluche, which is a Mexican TV show where like the neighbor, so they're all they're a family and they're planning to go to the movies that day, and then the neighbor comes by and like their best friend comes by to their house and is like, hey guys, do y'all want to go play dominoes with me and my wife, like as the parents? And the mom is like, actually, like my husband, has to go to the hospital today because he's donating a kidney. He's in the bathroom and he's trying to empty the kidney, or the whatever it is, the kidney, to go donate right now. And like she does this whole spiel. Obviously, like for comedic purposes, it's a comedy show. And the neighbor friend is like all like, oh my God, of course, like whatever, like I hope he's okay, and they're okay, whatever. And so he leaves, and then like the husband comes back and is like, why'd you tell him this big ass lie? Like, now we have to like pretend like I donated a kidney and stuff like that. Like, it was just unnecessary. She could have just said, we're busy, we're going to the movies as a family. But she made up this whole story as an excuse to like not go play dominoes with the other family. So like I feel like my mom is that lady that like makes this unnecessary web of lies for things that don't need a web of lies. You know what I mean? And she would always like encourage me to lie to other people, like like for dumb, like if I didn't want to go out, which was often, as the same way I am now. If I didn't want to go out, she would just say, oh, just tell them we're going to Laredo, we're going out of town.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't want to lie, like, and she would always. So in elementary school, that's when I got glasses for the first time in elementary school. And a little bit after I got glasses, I got contacts because my mom, beauty, girl, for beauty purposes, I got contacts. And my mom wore colored contacts, so I wore colored contacts. Like gray,
Oh, ugh. Just like I remember when that started happening, and I thought like lizards took over the planet.
Lizards?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, yeah.
Just like aliens. I was frightened, and I'm kind of still frightened to this day. Like RuPaul has been wearing them this season.
Yeah, they're scary.
No.
But those are scary. That's not what mine look like.
No, they all look scary because they're all unnatural looking.
Okay, whatever. Well, so I was like in 4th grade or whatever wearing my gray contacts. And then I was in line at the end of the day, first waiting for something. You know how you're randomly in lines sometimes in elementary school. And some girl came up to me and was like, are your eyes real?
Oh my gosh.
Or whatever. Like, is that your real eye color? And my mom had always told me, you'd never admit that these are fake. You just say, yes, these are my real eye color. So she had like told me, like she would always tell me like, you just say yes, they're your real eye color. So I was like, yes. When she asked me that, and she was like, okay. She didn't believe, but like it was just funny. Like I was just trained to be like, yes. But that was a dumb lie. Like nowadays I would be like, obviously not. Like I'm just having fun or something, like, but as a kid you're like embarrassed by that kind of thing. So that was a dumb lie, I think.
What if you changed your contact color though?
What do you mean?
Like,
no, I would always have gray or green, and they're pretty similar. Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah, I mean, but it wasn't even someone I knew. It was some rando.
Yeah,
that just came up to me in the line. Like from another class, not from my class.
That is unhealthy.
Yeah.
Conditioning.
Right. So that's just a little dumb lie that I remember. It stuck with me. Just because, like, that's why I don't wear contacts now, because I wore them from elementary school. Very young. Probably like 10 years old. Through high school, till my senior year of high school, I wore contacts. And that's why I don't wear them now. Because that's like, I wore them for enough time. Like, I don't know. Not and I switched to clear like sometime in middle school. So like not colored contacts the whole time, but just contacts in general. Like I got tired of them. You know, that's why I don't wear them now.
Well, I'm glad because I actually like the look of glasses.
Oh, thanks.
Preferably to contacts. So.
I like them as like a fashion, like an accessory. Mm-hmm. They're like a fun accessory.
I kind of wish I could wear glasses. I think I would look more intelligent.
Honestly, I wish so hard for glasses right before I got them, and it's like it's such a stupid wish to want. Like I would wish for crutches. You ever wish for crutches? Like to have
I think I
crutches.
wish for like a wheelchair because I was like, God. I could just sit everywhere I go.
Exactly. Like there's some things that are messed up.
I was like, I don't want to walk. I just want to.
Right. But as a kid, you don't realize you're wishing, something,
Right. Of course.
like an illness or an injury.
Toy, and it's just like, oh man, that's so cool.
That's what
I
thought about.
Actually not.
That's what I thought about crutches. And then I got them. So, that was a dumb lie. Oh my God, that's embarrassing. But like, I did lie to get myself into crutches once.
Oh my God. Do you want to tell me now?
Sure. Mine was short. So I've been in crutches twice. The second time was like a couple years ago, and I broke my toe, which that was real. But when I was young, like around 10 or 11 years old, I was in a bad horse accident. So I was a horse girl back then. My dad is like kind of a cowboy, and he's obsessed with horses, and he had me in like horse lessons and all that. And we had
You were an equestrian?
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 No, I was Western. So equestrians are like a different kind of style.
Oh.
They're like the more fashion ones. The Western ones are like, the Texas-y looking ones. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's like a Western saddle and an Eastern saddle, and the Eastern is like way more chic. It's like the jumping horses style, the jumping fences. I mean,
I understand.
Yeah, and Western is more like roping and all that. What are you doing?
I'm just checking. I got messages. Shit, fuck.
I do too.
Sorry, excuse my language.
So anyway, I was a horse girl, and we went out riding our horses. We had a couple horses, and my horse just got out of control, and it ran with me on it, and I fell off. It bucked me off. My hand or arm got cut up in the reins, or it got caught in the reins, and it dragged me. The horse dragged me from a distance. Like my mom thought it stepped on me because it was like stepping like around me. And it didn't. The horse didn't. And it was like a very scary situation. And after that, I told a few dumb lies about it. One was I told my dad I was traumatized of horses and I'm terrified of horses so that he would stop making me do horse stuff. But I wasn't. I wasn't scared.
So was that like the last time you rode a horse?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And so I was able to, because I didn't like the whole horseback riding thing that much. I wasn't good at it. I didn't like going fast. It's scary. Like, I was at a trot. Like, I would never, like, run on the horse because it's just scary. It just feels, I don't know. I wasn't, like, going to go competitive or anything. I wasn't on a track for anything. So, like, I was just, like, over it. I like to be indoors. I like to do art, whatever. So I didn't want to do horses. But my dad was obsessed. And he was, like, forcing us, So after that, I was able to be like, no, I'm scared of horses. So he probably still thinks I'm scared of horses. Like, which I'm not. I mean, I'm just, like, I'm not interested in them. And I also lied about... So I went to the doctor after all that, because I was hurt. But I wanted to get crutches from it. I wasn't that hurt. And the doctor asked me to, like, walk in a straight line. And I pretended to walk weird. Like, my hip was messed up. And they were, like, talking, like, hip surgery. They were like, oh. My God. But, like, my x-rays are fine. So, for safety, they gave me crutches. And that was all I wanted. And.
Did you use them?
Yeah. I mean, it was fun for a little bit, but I'm sure I got over them real quick.
Yeah, because it's not fun
It's
when you're having
not.
to
It
use them
hurts.
like every day.
It literally hurts, and it's so awkward to like get around. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I
and you can't
felt.
go upstairs. I
Yeah.
mean, like it's hard as fuck.
It is.
Sorry, excuse
I
me.
mean, you saw like a couple years ago when I had them. It was like it was
It
horrible.
was like the beginning of our podcast.
Yeah, it was horrible. Like I was stupid and I was just young, so that was a dumb lie, a very dumb lie, two dumb lies in the same incident.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it got me remembering a time that I lied about
Right.
being sick,
Oh,
which it was a Ferris Bueller type of thing. But
wow.
but like so, the thing was that there were just times where like I really would prefer to stay home, right? Like I didn't obviously, right? Like I just didn't want to go to school. I think like maybe there were times where like I was afraid of getting like bullied or something at
Aw,
school,
that's so sad.
and I just didn't want to go. So I would like pretend that I was sick or whatever and
Yeah.
stay home. Well, usually it worked and it was successful, but one time I pretended to be sick, and then and it was like I wasn't showing any symptoms. I seemed fine. I was like I didn't have a fever or anything, and I was just like pretending to be sick and all that. And so my mom told Ron to take me to the doctor. It was like, all right, well, we'll like, you know, not take you to school today, but you're going to have to go to the doctor.
Oh, I mean, kids don't want to do that either.
Yeah.
Right?
And I like, it was really annoying because it was harder for us because we didn't have a car. We'd have to like take the bus. And I just kind of hated it because it was really far, and like it was probably hot, and we had to like wait for the bus outside. And so I remember it just being a grueling experience, and we get to the doctor, and I remember it being so awkward because it's like me having to pretend to be sick in front of the doctor, and they're probably having side conversations outside of the office or outside of the room that I'm being seen in, being like, the doctor's probably telling Ron he's not actually sick, like he hasn't shown any symptoms, he probably just doesn't want to go to school or something. But he still did all the tests and everything, and he was like, yeah, well, everything seems fine, Cameron, so I think you should just take it easy, get some rest, and let us know if anything changes. And so it was just a waste of time, and I had to like stay in my lie. But anyway, so that was like a stupid dumb lie. Can I tell you one from middle school?
Can you be succinct? Because
No.
we're running out of time.
No, I
You
can't.
can't?
No.
You can't? Why not?
It's okay. So I'll try to tell it quickly. Basically, what started happening around 7th and 8th grade was puberty. And
Shocker.
I started feeling more autonomous and that and more rebellious. Like I just didn't want to really associate with my mother at all, sadly. And so I remember that by 8th grade, Ron wasn't in the picture anymore, and he wasn't taking me to school. And I think I was just like at that point taking the bus on my own to get to school. So looking back on it, it's kind of ridiculous that I never biked, because if I had just learned to bike, we lived so close that I could have easily bicycled. But anyway, that's here nor there. This is kind of like in my mind, it's like the classic first lie that had like major consequences for me in my relationship with my mother. So my mother was at this time giving me $5 for lunch, to buy lunch when I got to school. And it's kind of because I was a picky eater. I didn't want anything she would pack for me. And so she would give me money that would usually go to like a little personal pizza that I would eat during lunch. And like, that's my food. And this is probably like where I really started to get bad eating habits, because I remember I'd probably have like something really small and simple at home for breakfast, and then I would go until dinner not eating anything. And I would hold on to that $5 and usually spend it on ice cream at that chocolate bar place that I was telling you about with my mom when we went out to eat the other day. So because I had like an after school thing I would go to, and next to it they had a dessert bar with ice cream, and I would save that $5 so I could get an ice cream.
Oh my god!
And I just remember
That's so
that very
bad.
specifically, because I'd usually have like $1.50 left in change, and I would spend like that dollar on a soda or something at the after school place. So anyway, what had happened was in 8th grade, I lost one of my textbooks. At least one, maybe a couple. But I remember I definitely for sure had lost one of them. And it came around time to return that textbook towards the end of the semester. And I never returned it. And so they contacted my mother to say, hey, by the way, your son hasn't returned XYZ textbook. If he doesn't return it by this date, then the fee for it is like $60 or $70. And so it was already a lot of money from my mom to give me $5 every day for lunch, let alone like this big thing that for the longest time, like ever since elementary school, when they gave me textbooks every year, like she always like snapped at me being like, you better not lose that. You better not lose that. And so I think because she snapped at me so hard about not losing it, I think that I got so fearful of telling her the truth of losing it that I didn't want to face the repercussions of hearing her be mad at me for losing it and then having to pay for it.
Yeah.
So she found out about it, and I think she was mad about it, but not like where she was about to be really mad, because she, gave me the money to pay it off, right? I never went and paid.
What the hell?
But I told my mom. I kept telling my mom, "Yeah, it's fine. I took care of it."
Cameron, that's
but
so fucked up.
I held on to that money, and I was just like
more
splurging.
Ice cream? Like
Not
what?
well. It was like now I can get the pizza and the ice
Oh
cream.
no!
So
oh my god!
I think that like.
You were so. I was like the opposite. I was so good, but you were such a bad.
A few days go by, and I've probably got like $20 or $30 left of that original money for that book, and then I'm pretty sure she gets a call back saying that they still have it, and then so my mom like is really mad at me when she comes home that day, and she's like, where's that money that I gave to you to pay off that textbook? And I was just like, I'm sorry, Mom, I only have this much money left. And then I think she just like went to the school the next day to like pay it off herself. But
I wouldn't trust you.
Well, so, and that's the big takeaway from it is like ever since that incident had happened, my mother never trusted me the same again. And I mean, to this day, I don't know that I've fully regained her trust. I mean, I like to think that I have, but like when my mom and I were living together while I was at UT just a couple of years ago, I mean, that was coming like those types of just feelings towards me that she couldn't trust me were coming to light over and over again. I mean, she was always blaming me for her not being able to find her keys or find XYZ that she would have sworn she left somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, Mom, I don't even know what you're talking about. I didn't touch anything. And she would still think like she wouldn't believe me. So it was bad.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's horrible. And like looking back on it, like had I known that it would have torn up our relationship that much, I wouldn't have done it. But it happened, and unfortunately, that trust, and I just don't think my mom ever looked at me the same. And it only kind of got worse in high school. Not like me lying to her, but just that trust factor got worse throughout high school. And I think that I just view my life like by the time I got to high school, I pretty much did not have a relationship with my mom. I mean, I remember it being very distant, us not really socializing much, even though we lived in the same apartment together. I was just like doing everything to tune her out, and I feel bad about that looking back.
Well, that's a mess. You're like a bad, like rebellious child.
Yes.
Like, I was not.
I've only got one other lie to share.
We don't have time.
We have to have it. It's an important one.
Well, is it short?
I'll make it short.
Okay.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So the last one I want to share is kind of the...
You're the one that has to go.
It's like... it's fine. It's like the cherry on top because... it's the last lie, I consider it. It was like the last lie where I purposely did it and then I got called out on it. So by the time I was in high school and making these friends and stuff, and also I was getting good at acting, I decided to incorporate lying into kind of how my character was, just like as a person and how I was relating to all of the people I interacted with as a teenager. And so I would lie about stupid, small little things just to like make a joke or to seem outrageous, right? Because I thought that would make people think I'm cooler or whatever, that I did more ridiculous things. So there was a girl that I liked, or just kind of had like a little crush on. And I remember it was like a junior, and I was telling her about this time. It was like probably, I think it was Halloween and my junior year. And I was telling her how, yeah, we got so crazy. Like we got drunk and we were doing all this crazy stuff, and we did do some crazy stuff. Don't get me wrong. But then I took it like to another level where I was like, yeah, we found this cat and I decided to like spray paint this cat and something crazy like that.
I would be so pissed. I would cease communications with you immediately
Well, I
if
mean,
I was this girl.
we were doing stupid things like throwing eggs on churches, and
Cameron, what the hell?
we were throwing
hoodlums.
And I don't think I did I think I threw the eggs on the church because I like didn't care, but they threw eggs on buses going by, which was I guess a thing. And so they egging things. So it was like ridiculous, but I thought it was cool and fun because I never did anything like that. And then so it was true. Like we were drunk. We were all like really drunk, and I just made up the story that, yeah, we also decided to like spray paint a cat or something that we found. So, and she liked the story. Like she like laughed really hard and thought it was crazy and ridiculous. Well, it came back to haunt me because she was friends with somebody else who was there that night.
That's what happened.
And then she brought it up. She was like, yeah, I heard that y'all like Cameron spray painted a cat. And obviously that person was like, what? That's crazy. That's not true.
Oh
and
my
then,
God.
And then so she like, calls me out on it the next day or whatever. When she finds out, she was like, Cameron, no, like, I think that I was like maybe trying to reach out to her and she wasn't responding to me for some reason.
Oh,
And then
so you're a liar now.
Yeah. And then I was like, why are you not talking to me? And she was like, Cameron, I heard that thing that you said about the cat was not true. And like, she was just like, I don't keep liars around. Like, I don't know why you would lie to me about a stupid thing like that.
Well, good for her.
Yeah, so no, but it's true.
Taking her side.
And I mean, good for her. Like she's really successful now doing her thing in Brooklyn. But I just it sucked for me because like things were going so well for me and her, and
Until you lied.
Yeah, and then she just totally cold turkeyed me. And she wasn't the only person that did that. There was another girl that I never looked at her in a romantic way, but I kind of did playful, fun, ridiculous lies like that with her too. And I just think she was over it too. And so she just decided to cut me out and not even explain it to me. At least the other girl told me why. But so when she told me why, and it was very specific like that, it clicked in my mind that I knew that I was doing something I needed to stop doing because it was affecting relationships. And so ever since then, I really like 180'd myself and was like, all right, I'm about integrity now because like that's what matters in relationships. And and so yeah.
Well, I'm glad you've learned that.
Thanks.
Have you lied in interviews? Because I have one that I lied in an interview.
Really?
It wasn't a recent one, so I wouldn't get in trouble. But like it was in college. And I was interviewing to be like a camp counselor, and I had to, one of the questions was like, talk about a time where you like had a conflict with someone and resolved it. And I didn't have anything. Well, I mean, I don't do anything. I just stay at home, and I'm not a confrontational person. Like if someone is bugging me or something, I just keep my distance. That's my solution. I don't go and try to change someone by confronting them, So, like, I don't have really stories of, like, I resolved a conflict. Maybe now that I've been in the workforce, like, I can think of, like, more professional examples.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I was, like, probably, like, a sophomore in college. So, like, I all I had lived was, like, high school or whatever. And I didn't have anything like that in, like, a professional-ish or anything kind of setting. And I made up this whole story. So, I did have an incident in my freshman year of high school where a teacher said like a racist comment about Mexico in class, and not to me directly. And there's a lot of Mexicans in the class. It was just stupid of her, because in Catholic school there's a lot of rich Mexicans that go there. So it's like, it's stupid of her to be being racist in the middle of class. But she said like Mexico, which she can be my grudge, one of my grudges, for being racist, but she was just like, oh, I thought Mexico was all just like dirt roads and mud huts and stuff like that. Yeah, I know. Like, a teacher said this in my class. She was very white, and like, she was kind of young too, but it was just super rude. But in the interview, and that's it. That's what happened. And I was just like internally traumatized, but like, I didn't do anything about it. But in the interview, I made up this whole story about how I went up to her after class and I was like, that was racist, or I like confronted her about this whole thing, and she was like, she apologized. Like, I made up all of the story that of like maybe it was just like my fantasy of like what should have happened, I guess. But like, me as a 15-year-old was not like emotionally at all capable to like confront someone on racism. This was before even woke culture or anything. Like, people were just more outwardly problematic, I guess. Or I don't know. People still are, but I don't know. It was just something I was not equipped to like confront, you know? And I was just like offended personally, but like, I didn't do anything about it. But in this interview, I made up this whole like, I confronted her and, you know, we hashed it out after class, but we didn't.
My God.
I know. I just panicked in the moment and I had to make up a conflict. But it should have. I mean, I wish I had the like intelligence or capability to confront her about me being offended, but I was too young. I was a kid. You know, a kid isn't.
Well, yeah.
I mean, some are, but like I was not the type of person to like confront racism, you know, and feel like, because like the power dynamics too. Like, you don't want to like get your teacher to hate you, you know, for calling her a racist. I don't know. I made up the whole story in the interview. That was my big conflict. So that was a dumb lie, I would say. I mean, I just feel like she probably saw through it, the interviewer, because like, what 15-year-old does that in 2012 or whatever year?
Did you get the job?
Yeah, but it was like not that many people apply, and you know, it's just. I mean, I answered well all the other questions too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I'm too afraid when I'm in interviews to lie.
I mean, I don't anymore, but that was like the one time I was just so inexperienced. Like, you have nothing, like no example, nothing, and it's like, I
think at that point, like, it's professionally accepted to do that.
Yeah, I just made up this heroic story where I was like this big hero against this racist teacher who was a racist, so fuck her.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if we have time to go on to your next segment.
Grudges?
Yeah.
You don't have any grudges that aren't a 10-minute story?
Well, I mean, it's easier to, I think, just mention what I got a grudge on. You go first.
Okay, well, I have a grudge against some of my high school friends who played a prank on me once.
Oh.
And it was so rude because I was a goody two-shoes, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, I don't know if your high school had this, but we had a big rule against off-campus lunch. You couldn't leave the campus during lunch. And so many of us had cars and stuff and wanted to, like, we had the capability to. And so it was a big rule for seniors, like, don't skip lunch. Like, off-campus lunch, if we catch you, you know, like, or, don't do it or else kind of thing. And then my friends and I decided to, like, scheme and plan to do it one time, you know? Like, once, we were going to Chick-fil-A or something, or Panera maybe. And I was the one with two of us had cars. It was a group of, like, 5 or 6 of us.
Yeah.
And 2 of us had cars, and the other car, so I was going in my car separate, and I get a text where they're like, we've been caught by the assistant principal. We're in the assistant principal's office. And they're saying they're not going to let us graduate. Like, they spun this whole thing. And I was, like, in my car, like, in the parking lot of the school, like, holy shit, like, what do I do? Like,
what?
And they're saying, like, oh, this girl is going to rat you out. Like, you know, like, one of them is going to rat you out. And they're going to come get you. Like, all this shit. I was so terrified. Like, I was such a goody two-shoes, and my GPA was, like, everything to me, you know. and then later they were like, oh, just come to Panera, we're here. And like, it was all a lie. They were already there, and they were already eating and stuff, like, without me. I was just mad because I think that was too much. That was, like, rude, right?
Yeah.
It was, I thought they were my friends, and I didn't expect them to lie to me because they weren't like that type to be like pranking, you know. We were pretty close. And it was just like a random...
It was almost like they just knew you were gullible.
Yeah, they knew I was gullible and, like, afraid of that. Maybe they just saw how afraid I was to do the scheme.
Well, like, so that's how I was. I would have been like those friends that you have grudges on now, because I would identify those that were gullible, and I would expose or
that's fucked up.
take advantage
you're
of
gullible.
that. Yeah, to a degree.
How would you feel?
I hate it, yeah. So I understand.
Well, I felt horrible. I was just like... I hate them right now. And I had to go pretend to be still friends with them at the lunch, whatever was left of it. They were still my friends after that, but they're not now, really.
Nobody's high school friends are still.
Some people are, but
no, that's true. I know.
I feel like they fall like flies, you know, as you move on in life. I mean, you still, now with social media, you can see them at a distance and be like, oh, cool, it's good they're doing well or whatever, but you're not like friends.
I was thinking of like because I don't think I have too many grudges. Probably more people have grudges on me than I have on others, but sadly, I'm a great person. And anyway, I think like the most recent one I can think of, I mean, I've got like some grudges from my former employer, obviously. But I'm not going to get into that.
It's better to go into the past for these.
I'm not going to go into that. But I am going to talk about like what kind of ruined 2019 for me was
2019. That was last year.
I know. Well, like it's a whole story, right? Like I don't have the time for it, but this one event caused a ripple effect for the remainder of the year that really stressed me out. Where I had made like a small little business deal with a local business owner here in Austin that's for me to shoot my short film in, because
that's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, is it good?
Yeah. Well, it's a good grudge, I feel like.
You think it's warranted?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just like, it was horrible where, and it's kind of classic because it was like the classic horror story that the department always used where things can go awry. But basically, I was in cinematography class, and the professor emphasized almost to the point that it was a requirement to do a fictional narrative film, because he thought that in terms of cinematography, that was the most challenging form of video to achieve, and that those would be getting the highest grades, basically. And since the majority of the grade for the final class was on this final project, it was important to get a good grade on it. And so I took the news not well, because I had a documentary background. I had just done a very successful short documentary the semester before, and that was just very much what I preferred because it was a lot easier to do. And I personally disagree. I think that you can achieve a lot of things that are well with cinematography in the documentary form, but I do understand where he's coming from, because it's also really easy to just do the least amount of effort, as I saw from many other classmates in my documentary classes. It's a really easy to do the least amount of work and still call it a documentary, right? I mean, you could use phone footage basically and call it a documentary. So basically it's like, so I
Skip to the end.
right. So I wanted to try to do this original story, and it just takes so much more work to do a narrative film. But I was willing to put in the work and the effort to do it, while simultaneously also trying to do a documentary for a documentary class. And anyway, I like write an original script and all this, and I do all this work to get these
Sorry.
crew people lined up to crew it for me, and I go casting for it, and it all took place in a grocery store or some kind of store. So I needed a local business owner that could donate the space of their store for us to film in. Well, that's really hard to do with a grocery store because they have to be open during normal business hours for their business, and it was like the only types of grocery store, the only way I'd get a grocery store, a normal one, would be to film in the middle of the night, which some students have done in the past. Well, I needed to find a store really that wouldn't, because the main character in my story was a kid. It was a child, and I didn't want them acting in the middle of the night. So luckily, I found a small business grocery store owner that claimed to be the oldest grocery store in Austin. That was closed according to their website's hours on like Sundays and Mondays. So I was like, oh, that's perfect. I will just book it for one day on Sunday, and I'll shoot my whole film in that one day. That's kind of crazy. Most of the short films are shot at least in 2 days. The one I'm currently helping out is a 3-day shoot. So it was already crazy to try to film like a 3 or 4 minute film in one day, but I felt confident that we could do it and move fast through it. And I was trying so hard to chisel down that script to only be 2 pages so it could just be real short. Anyway, I work out this deal. I have many, in-person meetings where I go to this guy's small business to sign this agreement so that I can rent his space for one day. Give him $200. The deal was for $250 for a full day, and I gave him a $100 down deposit to get that day. We signed an agreement and everything. So it was all official and legit. Everything was moving forward, and I was doing casting, and then out of nowhere, he just ghosts on me, and he stops responding to my phone calls or my text messages. And then he starts being really weird where he's not even at the grocery store during normal business hours when he's supposed to be open. It just says closed. And then he also, when he does decide to text or call me back, he does it at like 11 p.m. or 1 a.m. in one instance. And it was so strange and weird. And his text messages were also being like, they seem like drunk text, basically. So I was just getting all these really bad vibes from the situation. And then the weekend, like right before we're going to do casting, and the production is like a month away, he sends me a text saying he doesn't want to do this anymore, that he'll refund my money, but he's going to pull out of the deal. And it was horrible because that was the only grocery store I was able to find where that would work, especially for the price we agreed on and in the amount of time I like needed it by. And then so I tried to scramble really hard to find another location, and long story short, it just didn't work out, and it felt horrible because I had this plan in place. I had like 10 people already agreeing to be on the crew who had set aside the time for it. I even had gotten the casting worked out where I'd picked out the actors and they worked out with their schedules to do it. And eventually I had to make that call to cancel the production. And it was the most gut-wrenching feeling. And it caused me so much stress because my documentary production I was doing on the side fell by the wayside with all of that scrambling, and that quality production ended up suffering from it. And then I had to scramble to figure out a new concept, a new thing to film for that class. Anyway, I mean, yeah, it all worked itself out in the end, right? But
it was just a big mess.
It was a huge mess.
And just because of one guy.
Just because that guy, he was being wishy-washy and then pulled out last minute.
He was crazy. He's probably maybe on drugs or something. I guess that's always what people say when people are being erratic, but he's maybe just weird, or he
was definitely off, right?
Yeah,
he was definitely off, and I mean, I took it kind of personally because I consider like myself a pretty indecisive person, and I'm trying like really hard to change that, and trying to make sure that if I agree to something that I'm going to follow through with that, and not to say yes to something and then change my mind like midway through. And him being like a 50-plus-year-old person, I really looked up to him thinking like he should be mature enough, especially as a business owner, to like know how to run business and keep agreements. And it was I just felt like it was super unfair. And so I still to this day, like, I'll be driving in that area, be like, I really just want to stop by and like rub it in his face, being like, this is what I ended up filming, too bad I couldn't do this, because I was like, it would have been great exposure for his grocery store to get more business. And
just screw that guy.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a grudge on that dude.
You should. I have one last quick one.
Okay.
That I just didn't want to have a storytelling podcast without my favorite story. Which is, I always tell it, but it's the one where as a kid, when I was 5 or around there, I would sneak out to the bodega. I would sneak out of my house and buy chips and candy and stuff at the local like corner store, I guess, which are kind of like what bodegas are in New York or wherever. And me and my neighbor, my best friend, would, sneak out like without anyone knowing. Like, we had to like make sure no one was watching. People thought we were playing like in the room or in the backyard, whatever. And we would run out. But we would also steal money for it because we had to pay for it somehow. We didn't have 5-year-olds don't get like money. So like my mom would leave out like money for like the house cleaner or something, like to pay, how you, if someone's like coming to clean your house, you're like, oh, I'll leave this amount of money on the table for you.
Yeah, right.
Or like the gardener, whoever. Just pick it up when you're here. And we would steal that money. Like, sometimes it'd be like 200, 500 pesos, which is like a lot of money. I think I stole 500 pesos one time. That's a lot of money.
Oh my gosh.
It was like $50 by then.
So you could do your nails?
No, what? No, I could buy a lot of chips and candy. And we would sneak out. We felt so rebellious. But I mean, obviously, eventually, we would do it often, but eventually we did get caught. And the grudge is against the chismosa neighbor that saw us and told my grandma. So the neighbor was my grandma's best friend. To this day, she's still her best friend. And she saw us running by ourselves, obviously. And she went right over and told my grandma everything. Was like, they were out there, blah, blah, blah. And my grandma came out all mad.
Oh,
and
my God.
We were friends with the shop owner guy. He was El Pelon, the bald guy. And we asked him to hide behind the counter. He hid us. He helped hide us, which is stupid. Like, why would a grown man like help out these little kids trying to avoid trouble? But eventually he he probably just let us for our own fantasy, and then talked to my grandma like adults and was like, yeah, they're right here, but yeah, my grandma came in and talked to him and took us and was mad about it. And they found out everything. So my grudge is against the chismosa neighbor. What's she doing looking out her window to catch me and my friends?
She's
having
just
fun.
Keeping it real.
I know, yeah. Honestly, she was doing the very responsible thing.
Yeah, obviously.
Snitching on these 5-year-olds.
But also,
running
like,
around.
don't snitch.
I know.
Don't snitch in the hood.
But like, yeah, so we were it was dangerous for us probably. It wasn't far. The little store was close by, but yeah, we had the time of our lives cuz it was the thrill of like escaping also, or stealing the money, which was messed up.
Well, and I wish sometimes that thrill that you experienced would come back cuz
No.
Do more risky outlandish things.
Hell no. I don't do that.
Oh.
So yeah. Well, so that's our random lies and grudges. I'm surprised a lot of them I feel like tie into each other. Like there's like that story could have been about lies too, because we would lie about not escaping.
Well,
we were
everything
escaping.
is more connected than it seems.
Yeah, like the virus.
And with that being said,
Well,
take care of yourselves.
Hold on.
Sanitize your butts.
Tomorrow, or wait, never mind.
What?
When this releases,
Uh-huh.
I'll have already done my stream. So I was gonna promote my stream, but it already happened last night.
But you're always welcome to go back to your channel to watch them. So
that's true. So I'll have a new women empowerment mix. That'll be available after the stream. So look out for that if you want like pop, and it's a really fun mix. It's very upbeat, so it's a good one for working out, I would say.
And I don't have anything, so go support.
It'll be in the description.
Well, thanks so much for watching and or listening to us today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. And
please stay safe. Wash your hands.
Yeah, whatever you do.
Don't go out.
Don't do it with other people.
Yeah.
But that's all good, and we are glad that we could close the gap on the social distance between you and I today.
Hopefully we can virtually hang out. If you have dumb lies or grudges, please reach out or comment below or email us at highkeybookclub@gmail.com, and we'll read them or something.
Yeah.
But this is a fun thing, right? Like everyone can relate to these things. That's what I think. That's why it's really cool on that podcast. Every time she has a guest, she gets new stories that are really interesting. So,
well, I guess until next time, then hopefully you'll be hearing from us. Oh. All right, cut.